Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And we have live with us this morning State Senator Tom O'Mara, who's going to talk about the legislative session that finished up late last week at the state capitol in Albany. Senator O'Mara, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, Senator O'Mara, I'm going to read off of Forbes.com, and because it lists all the issues that of items that were passed and not passed. You would think from this writer in Forbes magazine that this was the most wonderful legislative session ever, but I'm sure you have a varying opinion on that, Senator.
I'm sure it's very different. I haven't seen that article, but as a good colleague of mine from Schenectady area, Senator Jim Tedisco, put it in a column this week, it was 6 months of hell, this legislative session. Just a mass of extreme liberal, downstate Democrat progressive ideas. It's just amazing what went through this session.
Yeah, she says, the writer of this Forbes article, Morgan Simon, many are calling this the most progressive session in New York State history, and for good reason. Over 300 left-leaning bills passed the legislature so far. 47 have been signed into law by Governor Andrew Cuomo. Your thoughts on the single-party rule there, Senator?
There's no check and balance at all. So many extreme liberal ideas and concepts came through the legislature this year without the check of a Republican majority in the Senate, which had controlled and blocked a lot of this stuff from happening for years. But elections have consequences, and the floodgates were open in the New York State legislature this year, and it was just one extreme liberal idea after another coming through without checks. So we debated the bills. We stood up and made our points as to why many of these things are extremely bad ideas, particularly for upstate New York. But they have the numbers. And they were able to pass a lot of these things through the legislature this year. Really left, I think, very little for them to do in next year's session, but we'll see. They're going to have some time to dream up even more far left-leaning ideas to bring out next year. We'll see just how much more damage they can do.
Yes, on that topic of what did not get done, let's see. This author here, I think her name is Morgan Simon of Forbes.com, talked about the things that did not happen. Let's see. A single-payer health care in New York State did not become a reality again. Aw. Senator O'Mara, your thoughts there?
Well, thankfully, that didn't move forward, and thankfully Governor Cuomo is not hot on that idea himself and realizes that that would be a catastrophe for healthcare in New York State. The cost would be immense. It would more than double the total New York State budget, which is out of control as it is right now, at about $175 billion a year. The healthcare single payer in New York State would crush the entire economy of New York State.
Now, according to Morgan Simon of Forbes magazine, another sad thing, sex work was not decriminalized. 1, 2, 3. Senator, this is terrible news for prostitutes and pimps.
Yeah, oh, boy. I've said all along that, they've been arguing over marijuana and how they were going to spend the money that was going to be generated from recreational marijuana legalization. They were only able to decriminalize it because they couldn't agree on how they were going to spend the several $100 million from that. And I've said all along that, once we clear the vice of marijuana and legalize that, the next target will be prostitution. And they're at it a lot sooner than I thought they would have been, because they have been talking about legalizing the sex work, prostitution all year. So that may gain steam next year. There's been some outspoken senators, some of the new Democrat socialist members of the New York State Senate and the Assembly have openly talked about this. In fact, there was a major upheaval in a district attorney's election in Queens County, New York, this week, where a avowed Democrat socialist, Caban, beat the party favorite Katz, and Caban was arguing on a platform of not prosecuting sex trade workers, pimps, or johns, and basically let that industry run unimpeded in Queens County, where it already has a huge foothold with the sex trade in Queens County, with a whole avenue of basically Asian massage parlors that are fronts for the sex trade there. And there's a district attorney that won the primary that's saying that she's not going to prosecute those crimes. It's outrageous.
That's the way it's going under one-party rule. Now, looking at this article from Forbes.com on things that did pass, passage of measures that nearly eliminate carbon emissions, big investments into wind, solar, and hydropower.
Yeah, that is very concerning to me in many ways. First, the feasibility of it alone to get to 100% carbon-free energy in New York State is going to be very difficult to get to on the timelines that they're talking about and what the expense is going to be. The most concerning part about that to me is the legislature has in many instances this year passed the buck to a new commission being set up that will have the power to come up with how we're going to meet these goals, what's going to be implemented, and that's going to have the force of law because it doesn't come back to the legislature for approval. The legislature did that in two other instances this year, one for congestion pricing or a commuter tax into New York City. That's going to be decided by an independent commission set up, and will put those costs, that new tax on commuters into New York City without the legislature having to approve what their findings are. And another task force was set up for taxpayer-funded campaigns, which the left has wanted for a long time, which would cost, our estimates are over $200 million a year of taxpayer dollars going to finance campaigns. And, certainly the money will be going to finance campaigns of candidates that you or I or other people in the community don't support, yet our taxpayer dollars will go to those. So it's passing the buck on very important issues and very costly issues that will ultimately cost the taxpayers a lot in New York State. With the findings they come out with and acting with the force of law will be automatically implemented by the state agencies, no matter what that cost is. It's very concerning to me.
Here's another thing that got passed, ending cash bail for many criminal defendants. New York became the third state to stop using cash bail to get those accused of what this writer at Forbes describes as misdemeanor and nonviolent low-level offenses to return to court. Would you agree with that description, Senator O'Mara?
Absolutely not. While many low-level crimes, all low-level crimes were included in this no cash bail program, it takes away any authority of a judge to set cash bail in low-level crimes, but also much more higher crimes. It goes up into the felony ranges where a local judge can't set bail on second-degree burglary or third-degree robbery, forcibly taking and stealing property from another individual. These are serious crimes in our communities, and these high-level drug crimes are going to be no cash bail. Petty larcenies and grand larcenies from our shopping centers are not going to be able to put bail on these, and these are crimes, drug crimes. These kind of larceny crimes can be committed by individuals from outside the jurisdiction, outside our state even, and the individuals will be set free with a desk appearance ticket saying, please come back to court to take your medicine. That is not going to happen. They're going to have a wide, huge number of people absconding, never to be seen again, and it will be, for those that are outside of jurisdictions, a cost on the locality to have to extradite the individuals back if they want to prosecute them. So an extra cost to the system as a whole, but no accountability and no real effort to make the individuals return to court. It's really bad criminal justice policy.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Senator O'Meara on what was passed in the legislative session. Stay with us.
Parents, please do your part this graduation season and be a smart host by having an alcohol-free graduation party for your graduate. Celebrate their accomplishments without risking legal consequences or worse. Graduation parties are a great time to set the example that you can have fun without including alcohol. This is Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard reminding you to celebrate safe and celebrate sober this graduation season. This message is brought to you by the Steuben Council on Addictions and the offices of the Steuben County Sheriff and the Steuben County District Attorney.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carroll, who says it's going to be warm through the weekend.
It is, Brian. We've got some warm temperatures which have set up across the Northeast and extend all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, kind of what we normally expect as we head through late June towards the month of July. But there will be some changes taking place this weekend. There's a big storm up over Hudson Bay. Part of that's going to break free, drop down towards the northeastern part of the country, and it's going to bring some showers and thunderstorms our way starting tomorrow afternoon and into the weekend. And by Sunday, we're going to see temperatures cooling off, Brian. We're going to have difficulty getting back into the 80s. It looks like we're back into that Canadian air for Sunday, probably through Tuesday of next week. This morning, we've got some showers and thunderstorms in the central part of the country. There's some high cloudiness moving off of those storms up over the top of us. We'll have partly to mostly sunny weather through those clouds. Temperatures today around 85. Sunrise earlier this morning was at 5:36. Sunset tonight at 8:51. Clear weather in the forecast for tonight for the most part. We're 60 to 65. Tomorrow we're partly sunny, but I do think we run the risk of a shower or thunderstorm tomorrow afternoon as some of that energy starts to drift down towards us from the north and west. Temperatures tomorrow very warm, 85 to 90. Tomorrow night, a very good chance for some showers and thunderstorms. It'll be 65 to 70. Clouds, a few breaks of sun Saturday, scattered showers and storms, 80 to 85. Brian will see sunny and cooler weather on Sunday.
And thank you, Rob. We're back with State Senator Tom O'Meara. Senator O'Meara, as the audience knows, I've been reading this article from Forbes magazine with a little sarcasm on the comments from the writer who called driver's licenses for the illegals undocumented as a historic victory that will allow New Yorkers to go through the same process as everyone else, submit an application, take a road test, and if they pass, obtain a license. Senator O'Meara, I think you probably disagree with that assessment that driver's licenses for the undocumented or illegals is a big victory for New York.
It is a big mistake for New York. Frankly, it's an embarrassment to be issuing government-sanctioned identification to individuals that are in our country illegally. They broke our laws to get here. They should not be entitled to a government-sanctioned ID. The effects of this will be extreme. It will give them a basis that, when you register for a driver's license through our motor voter registration laws, there's opportunities to electronically include yourself registering to vote, and there's no difference in the process for an illegal immigrant going through this process than it is for you or I to register to vote when applying for this driver's license. Now, it's supposed to say on it, not for federal purposes, on the front of their license once it's issued, but that's identification that can be used for a variety of purposes in New York. And the craziest thing about it is one of the justifications was these illegal immigrants need to be able to drive to and from work, and it'll be safer if they have driver's licenses, and then they can be insured and on our roadways. But first and foremost, the illegal immigrant is not legally allowed to have a job. in this country or in this state. An employer is not legally allowed to hire somebody that's here undocumented in this state. And further, even more basic than that, an individual's foreign driver's license is valid in this country and in New York State. So somebody coming from a foreign country, whether it be Mexico or France, for that matter, they can drive in this country with that driver's license. So it's a whole smoke and mirror scheme to get some government-sanctioned ID for these illegal immigrants. And legal immigrants that come here with a visa, with a green card, with a work or student visas, they could get a driver's license. They have to show their documentation, their papers at the DMV, and they get issued a license that's clearly marked temporary with an expiration date as to when their papers expire. These illegal immigrants will get a driver's license with the same expiration period as you and I get, an 8-year period from when they get that license, so it'll be valid for 8 years. It's outrageous to be providing this to those who are here illegally in our state.
Senator O'Meara, the way that this Forbes writer explains it, there are new protections for farm workers. After working more than 60 hours a week, farm workers in New York State now have the right to receive overtime pay. Now, Senator, I live on hills where there's farms. Wasn't hearing a whole lot of complaints from farmers or people who worked on farmers. Actually, all the farmers I know are family farmers. And from what I understand from people like you and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, the farmers weren't too thrilled with this legislation on overtime rules.
The farmers themselves are not thrilled with it, and by and large, the farm workers themselves are not thrilled with this. This is just wrong-headed legislation that was sponsored by two legislators from Queens, from New York City, one of the most left-leaning liberal bastions, as I talked about the DA candidate they just elected earlier in the program. Two Queens legislators who have no farms in their districts are dictating how our farms have to operate here on what has been the historic law of New York State, for good reason, in New York and in farming, that you have to make hay while the sun is shining in farming, and there's a lot of times that you have to work long hours. You have to work more than 40 hours in a week, and there are times when the weather's bad when you can't work at all. This legislation sets up, well, it's not 40 hours for overtime, it's 60 hours for overtime. Most of these migrant farmers that come here on visas to work want to work more than that. They want to get they're here to work. They're here to work for a season and take money back home to where they came from, and they come back again next year. This is going to limit farmers that are on the edge to begin with. They're going to say, we can't afford to pay time and a half once you get to your 60 hours. So sorry, you're not going to be able to work more than 60 hours in the week. Our farmers are mostly family farms. This is going to be a devastating, crushing blow to family farms who are on the brink already. I had to laugh or cry yesterday. I was reading an article that Congressman Antonio Delgado from the Hudson Valley area of New York State was introducing legislation federally to increase bankruptcy protections for farmers in this country, because so many farms are on the brink of bankruptcy and failing because of the economic conditions. And now New York State goes through the Democrat Party in New York State with the extreme liberals from downstate, Queens, New York, coming up with this legislation is going to put even further burdens on our farmers and may crush many of them and force them out of business.
Talking to Senator Tom O'Meara, just finishing up our interview with the senator this morning. One thing they say that in this article from Forbes, as we know, and we know this already from our news, that marijuana was not legalized but decriminalized. And another, let's get your thoughts on that, Senator.
It's wrong. Now you can possess up to 2 ounces of marijuana. That's several hundred joints that can be made out of that amount. You can. It's just a violation. Now the police can still confiscate your marijuana and give you a ticket for a non-criminal violation. And up to 2 ounces, the maximum fine a court can set is $200. Up to an ounce, the maximum fine is $50. It just sends the wrong message to our youth, particularly in this state, that marijuana is something that's acceptable and an alternative to use. I just think to go this route is just wrong. It's going to certainly increase and embolden the illegal drug trade of marijuana in this state, and there'll be much less disincentive for somebody to be concerned about getting caught with marijuana. Not that I believe marijuana is the end of the world, because I don't, and I think it is not a whole lot different than alcohol, other than the aspects that we can't detect what an individual's level of intoxication is, like having a breathalyzer for alcohol. We don't have a similar mechanism for telling that with for somebody that's high on marijuana operating a vehicle, or those in the workplace that may be high or had smoked it 20 days ago, and it still shows up in their system. You don't know that they were high at that time. So it causes a great deal of problems for law enforcement on making our roads safe, and for employers with employees working in dangerous capacities, and how that may impact issues in the workplace.
With that, I have to let you go, Senator O'Mara, but thank you so much for joining us, and we learned a lot today. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on, Brian, anytime. And, we could probably go on with these extreme left liberal ideas that were passed in the legislature for another couple hours and still not be done with it. So I thank you for hitting the high points. There was a lot more bad things done in this legislature, and more to come in the next session, I'm sure, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you, Brian.